A very good morning and warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for choosing Smart 24 TV. We are always honored that you join us this morning. And after Smart means business, of course, it's financial markets, a fresh edition where we get to look at the different key players in the stock markets. We look at the performance of stocks, both locally, regionally, and globally. My name is Anthony. You can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Sebale, and you can follow Smart 24 TV at Smart 24 TV. Now, some of the things we're going to look at ahead of the show include the stocks in the United States that have actually gained so much in the recent few hours. When you look at the last couple of hours of trading of yesterday, closing the month, most of the stocks gained, especially the benchmark indices. We're also going to be looking at critically the performance of the Ugandan stocks here, and have a look at what the financial institutions especially are doing in response to the new minimum capital requirements. But before we go ahead, I just want to remind you that Altex East Africa Trading is your #1 trading platform on all your latest treasury bonds. Altex East Africa now also has the Safaricom stocks listed on the exchange. It's a private stock exchange that deals in trading of both the treasury bond market or the fixed income securities and the stocks. When you look at Safaricom, it's one of the biggest companies in Africa in as far as telecommunications are concerned. And now you can be able to buy the shares at Safaricom using Altex as your trading platform. Simply, you need to go and visit the Altex trading platform and have a look at what they have in store for you. Altex also under Zabu is saying you can dial *292# and following the prompts, you can be able to buy and sell the fixed income market securities there. You can do so by simply also going to their website at www.altexeastafrica.com to learn more about how you can move forward in as far as the trading is concerned. Altex markets open at exactly 15 past 8 a.m. and close at 15 past 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. Altex, you can do something new. Now, of course, let's have a look at the Uganda Stock Exchange trades here on Monday. Yesterday was the last day of the month. And today is the 1st of August as we, of course, get into almost the closing of the third quarter of the year. It's a very critical period of the year. It's a period, of course, of evaluation. When you look at how the year began in 2023, January, where we are right now, there's a lot that has changed. There's a lot that has, of course, been brought into the markets. And so it's a critical moment for you as an investor to look back and reflect and make conclusions on how you're going to diversify your portfolio and how you're going to move forward in the coming quarter. That is the final quarter of the year. What were your New Year resolutions? Are you getting ahead of them? Are they getting ahead of you? Where is the plan? What is going to happen in the next few months before the year ends so that you can be able to fulfill at least some of your goals financially? But looking at the Uganda Stock Exchange on Monday, the trading ended with 3 participants in the trade on the Uganda Stock Exchange, all these being domestic listings as usual. And now the day ended, unfortunately, with 5 losers and 2 gainers, 5 gainers and 2 losers on the market. Most of these being cross listings moving up and down in terms of their stock price. East African Breweries Limited led the gainers this time round with a gain of at least 1.86% and closed off the day at 4,173.37 Ugandan shillings. Whereas the Jubilee Holdings Limited stock also gained about 0.56% and was up to 4,737 Ugandan shillings. Centum Investments, on the other hand, at least gained 0.38%, up to a price of 228.84 Ugandan shillings. Nation Media Group at least added 0.16%, up to a closing price of 507.40 Ugandan shillings. Kenya Airways was another gainer at least a gain of 0.16%, up to a price of 97.17. Those were some of the top gainers. As you can see, none of these participated in trade. The movements were entirely based on what we call the non-participatory trading effects, that is foreign exchange rates, as well as movement or the price shifts in the primary stock exchanges, which is in this case the price shift of these companies on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Amongst the bottom losers, we still had cross listings, Equity Bank Limited and KCB. Equity Bank Limited lost at least 6.77% and was down to 1,007.19 Ugandan shillings, whereas the KCB group at least was down to about 726 Ugandan shillings, down by 0.02% yesterday. In as far as the traders were concerned, MTN Uganda traded at least 9,750 volumes in terms of shares, and Stanbic Bank Uganda traded the biggest volume at a close to about 77,150 shares, and Wumeme at least had about 899 shares that were traded. Well, in as far as the financial institutions are concerned, a lot has been going on amongst different stakeholders in these financial institutions. That is the Tier 2, the Tier 3, and Tier 1, that is the commercial banks, about the minimum capital requirements that have come up in the most recent few months. The Ministry of Finance, together with the Bank of Uganda, teamed up to actually get to raise the minimum capital requirements for the banking institutions as well as for the credit facilities here in Uganda. And these have affected quite a number of banks. We've seen some banks close. We've seen some of them lower their status because they can no longer be able to hold up. But let's see a deeper analysis of why the Bank of Uganda, together with Ministry of Finance, are looking at raising these minimum capital requirements. What could be the underlying factors? What could be some of the things that they are looking at in as far as this raising of the minimum capital requirements is concerned? The talk about this started at least in the year 2021, just around COVID-19, just a few months past COVID-19 period. And that meant that these institutions had faced quite a number of challenges during the COVID-19 period. And so this is what informed the regulators and the key stakeholders to actually get to raise these institutions' minimum capital requirements. Besides that, there was also a lot of talk about resilience of these institutions, of how resilient they were in as far as the markets were concerned, in as far as maintaining capital was concerned, amidst pressures from different angles and from different sides. So these are some of the things that were put forward for, of course, these financial institutions. The minimum capital requirements for banking institutions have been raised to 120 billion rather, from the previous 25 billion. That is by the end of this year, 2023. But by next year, in March 2024, they will be at least raised to 150 billion. That's at least what we have so far in as far as these markets are concerned. That means that by next year, if a bank does not meet 150 million minimum capital requirement, it will be closed, or it will have to transfer to a lesser status. The other credit finance institutions, which have been at a minimum capital requirement of 1 billion, have also been raised to 150 billion. 150 billion. That is when exactly we shall see 125 billion, and that's exactly by this time next year. That's when we shall have these minimum capital requirements enforced once again. So you have all these things coming in at the same time, and the credit finance institutions are saying they are not ready for this. Also, forex bureaus and institutions have also been affected because theirs have also been pushed. For example, for the forex bureaus, from 50 million to over 200 million. That's about 4 times the previous requirement. How are they maneuvering this? We put the question to, of course, the stakeholders, but also government, on how it's going to be able to support some of these financial institutions to see that they don't run out of business. That is something that we haven't got an answer to yet, but hoping we shall get sooner rather than on the matters. Well, besides that, the institutions are doing quite well. Some of them, like Bank of Baroda, Uganda, have issued bonus shares on the stock exchange here in Uganda to try and catch up with some of the requirements here on the Uganda Stock Exchange. For example, Bank of Baroda Uganda posted at least over 12.5 billion extra shares this year on the 7th of June. And these shares are under the bonus issue category. Bonus issue means that these shares that have been floated are only accessible by the share current on the stock exchange. So if you are not a shareholder, you are not able to benefit from this because they are subsidized for the shareholders. They are tailored for the shareholders to be able to buy more shares into the company and the company to raise more capital. That's exactly why the capital markets are very, very important, as per, of course, our different platforms here on the Uganda Stock Exchange. So besides that, let's have a look at the stock exchange indices here on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Well, the benchmark index, the all-share index, at least declined by 11.95 points and was down to close at 1,008 points. Whereas when you look at now the weekly losses, they are down by 4.39%. and a 4-week loss of 0.89%, an overall year-to-date loss of about 16.82%. That's the all-share index, which tracks the aggregate performance of all the 18 listed stocks on the Uganda Stock Exchange. The local company index maintained its value at 268.74 points and making it a 1-week loss now of at least 2.55%. and 4-week losses of 1.07%, and a year-to-date loss of 1.44% on the exchange. That's the local company index tracking the 10 domestic listings on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Let's have a look at Nairobi and see what Nairobi has for us in as far as trade is concerned on Monday. Now, closing off the month, the Nairobi Securities Exchange All-Share Index appreciated at least by 0.26%. And this was closing at 105.49 points. The major participants included 46 Nairobi Securities Exchange listed equities and 19 gainers with 17 losers as well. East African Portland Cement Company led the gainers with a 9.82% appreciation in price, closing at 7.16 Ugandan shillings per share, Kenyan shillings per share. And Liberty Kenya Holdings at least appreciated 7.14%. Crown Paints Kenya added 5%, and Diamond Trust Bank at least about 3.47%. On the losing side, Nairobi Business Ventures at least came out last with an end of day price depreciation of 9.86%, whereas that was closing at 3.11 Kenyan shillings per share, followed by East African Breweries Limited at an 8.146% depreciation in price. Bank of Kigali Group at least lost also 5.17%, and Uchumi Supermarket over 4.71%. Safaricom recorded the highest volume on a day where the highest volume was 558,000. A quite smaller volume, so to say, regarding at least the recent performances. Now, rather, the Safaricom stock appreciated also by 0.1 Kenyan shillings to 17.0 Kenyan shillings, a 0.59% appreciation in price. Safaricom currently is the number one most valuable stock on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, with close to 677 billion Kenyan shillings of market capitalization listed, 41.1% representation of the entire Nairobi Securities Exchange equity market. Nairobi closed Monday with a price of 16.90 Ugandan shillings after recording a gain of 1.8%. However, Safaricom began the year with 24.15 Kenyan shillings per share this year and has since then lost 30% of that value, ranking it the 58th in terms of year-to-date performance. Safaricom, however, is still the top participant in trade or Nairobi Securities Exchange over the past quarter. And in the last 3 months, from the 2nd of May to the 31st of July, at least a total volume of 610 million shares has been recorded on the markets. On average, Safaricom trades 208 million shares per trading session, which was achieved on the 28th of July. That is their highest volume. Over 208 million shares have been traded on a single day on Safaricom. Away from Safaricom, Centum Investments also had 545,000 shares traded. Unfortunately, the day for Centum Investment ended in losses here on the exchange. Remember, Centum Investments has been recording quite a number of losses, especially in terms of their portfolio, how they have been able to select which companies they are trading in. There's been a lot really for the company to look out for. Centum Investments lost a huge sum of money by investing in some of the some businesses that actually did not work. However, looking at their financial statements, their real estate investment portfolio, when you look at the real estate, that's the only segment of investment that returned a profit for them last year in the year 2023, but in the year 2022 financial year. But this year, the company is saying they're looking at trying to diversify and see how they can maneuver and make a profit out of all the other different investments, especially those in financial institutions. That's Centum for you. According to markets yesterday, Centum investors seem to be still responding to what the reports had for them in the financial year 2022, after at least 500 shares were sold yesterday in one deal at 4,070 Kenyan shillings, and closing the day with a loss of 0.82 Kenyan shillings, down to 8.14 Kenyan shillings per share. Centum currently is the 23rd most valuable company on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, with at least over 5.96 billion Kenyan shillings worth of market capitalization, which makes about 0.362% of the Nairobi Securities Exchange equity market. That is Centum Investment for you. Kenyan markets are going to improve. However, there's still a lot more to look out for, especially for those of you who have been investing in the financial institutions. There is a lot of heat when it comes to the investment areas in Kenya. Foreign direct investments in the capital markets and flight of capital have been some of the reasons that have pushed away many of the investors, as when the investors feel like there are more attractive markets elsewhere, they all shift and panic sell, and that negatively affects the trading of the Centum and a couple of other stocks here on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now let's have a look at the United States. Now, July has come and gone for investors, bringing with it a continuation and a new twist on the blistering stock market in the United States, as gains are seen in the first half of this year. Tech sector, for example, the Tesla and a couple of other Google Meta platforms, along with some of the last year's biggest losers like communication services and consumer discretionary, powered the market's rally throughout the month of May. But over the last 2 months, one of the biggest concerns among market bearers that the rally had become too concentrated has been addressed, with all the 11 sectors in the S&P 500 logging gains between June and July. And while the aforementioned stars of this year's rally are still playing a leading role, a surge in oil prices in the United States has brought the energy stocks into the fold, with cyclical sectors like the materials and industrials also sitting on gains north of about 14% since June, as optimism about the economy also gets to abound. This has left all sectors with exception of the healthcare sector and utilities sitting on year-to-date gains throughout the month of July. Combine this broad strength with the bullish year-to-date performance or seasonality statistics on the United States. We've been compiling the final 5 months of the year as per having some of the powerful tailwinds. Notably, however, Tuesday brings us into a new month now of August, which has been the weakest month of the year over the last 25 years. When you look at stocks in the United States, the month of August is one of the weakest years for at least consecutive 25 years, when you just look back and see how these different stocks have been performing in the month of July. We can see that the 3 leading sectors until May were those that are the so-called Magnificent 7 stocks, as well as the growthier names that tend to be less cyclical. For example, tech, communication services, consumer discretionary, energy, utilities, and financials, as well as healthcare. These are the 7 sectors of investment that have remained strong over the past 5 months. The tech sector, for example, is a home to some of the newest companies and some of the latest editions of, for example, Microsoft. We have NVIDIA. Artificial intelligence has been really at the helm of these tech stocks. Apple, which is up by some 50% so far this year, is also a member of the tech sector. Alphabet, Google, along with Meta Technologies, is a member of the communication services sector. And even with the rally broadening in the recent months, we can really see that the tech sector is still doing a lot of the heavy lifting. It may not be able to surprise you, but when you look at what to learn from both the Apple and Meta stocks, they have been positive each month this year. At least for Meta, the streak of monthly wins extends all the way back to November 2022. Through May, Amazon and other e-commerce players were primarily responsible for boosting gains in the consumer discretionary sector. When you look at this month, we are still very much concerned about the tech sector in the United States: Apple, Google, Microsoft, Tesla, and artificial intelligence, because these have been some of the heavy lifting companies, at least for the big indices like the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite, and the S&P 500. That and more is what we're going to be watching this week, as we also look for the big earnings from Amazon and Apple. At least by the end of this week on Friday, we shall have results of those two coming in for the second quarter of the year 2023. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Smart 24 TV. Remember, Altex East Africa brings you this show, and Altex is saying you can now buy Safaricom stocks using Altex. There are quite a number of shares on offer, and you can check out the website of Altex to see how you can buy some. www.altex.com for more. Also, under Zabu, you can dial *292# and follow the prompts to be able to buy or sell treasury bonds in East Africa. Altex East Africa, doing something new. And that's it, my friend, from today. We will be meeting again tomorrow. For now, I wish you a very lovely Tuesday. Bye for now.